Hello, today's Total Soccer Show is sponsored by SeatGeek, where you can buy and sell tickets with just 2 taps on your phone. SeatGeek are offering $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. You download the app, you enter the promo code TSS, that's promo code TSS, you get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and sitting across the table from me is a man with one eye on the future. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. It's a little bit frustrating because it makes depth perception kind of difficult, but yeah, it's always worth looking ahead while keeping yourself grounded.
You should see an optometrist.
Yeah.
So
still don't know the difference between an optometrist and an ophthalmologist, and then there's one more that also throws me off.
We should look this up later.
It seems like a whole big thing. I'd rather just not know for the rest of my life.
So today's show, we've talked about the US defeat to Trinidad, not going to the World Cup. We kind of did a survey of the US soccer landscape and what's going to happen with American soccer going forward on yesterday's show. Mm-hmm. You are welcome to go back and check that out. It's the previous episode. Today, we want to look to the future and the players that we see coming through who could play for the US national team in the near to medium term.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, as discussed yesterday, this specifically isn't here's your squad for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, because that's a long way away.
It is. It is.
And also, didn't you make the point yesterday that, let's not assume we're going to qualify for that. Mm-hmm. Let's start putting teams together to win the Gold Cup, to maybe compete in Copa America Centenario, then to go through the World Cup qualifying campaign.
Yeah,
right? Absolutely.
But then I think to explain how we're going to go about this a little bit, I think part of it is also that when we're looking to the future, we're also aware that, as we said last night, you're going to have some of the same players in there. You're still going to have, for example, DeAndre Yedlin is going to be in the squad moving forward.
No one's going to argue with that.
No, but we're not just going to drop everyone.
Yes.
But then we go down that road of well, then are they probably going to keep him? Probably. And we kind of just want to avoid that completely. Yeah. So instead, the idea here is for these November qualifiers that are being rumored to be scheduled.
November friendlies.
Excuse me.
We wish they were qualifiers.
Oh, I'm just used to saying qualifiers. And now I'm sad again. But I'm going to get happy because these November friendlies, say U.S. Soccer said, Daryl and Taylor, you have to come up with...
Are we co-head coach?
Sure,
I love it. It's like a Roy Evans, Gerard Houllier at Liverpool in the early 2000s.
I'm not sure who does what.
I'll do the admin.
All right, that's fine. I think there's other people for that. But basically the idea being that we want to go with players who have maybe 5 or fewer caps. If you were just going to kind of change it out, get a whole bunch of fresh faces in there just to say, this is the future. And then also maybe you're letting the current senior team know, hey, there's some kids who could come in and take your spot.
Yeah, so for example, we wouldn't drop DeAndre Yedlin or Bobby Wood or Josie Altidore, but they'd have to sit out and watch this game and take a look at what's coming through.
They'd be in the shame box at midfield. The entire team. You guys sit in the shame box.
So we're each going to pick a super experimental starting 11 that we would maybe put, or a squad that we would put together for those November friendlies if we were just looking to the future. Partly we're trying to convince ourselves that the future is bright. Hopefully we'll sort of convince some listeners that the future is not all bad. Because we said in yesterday's show, there are players coming through. Things are not too bleak. 2 U20 World Cup quarterfinals in a row, for example.
Yeah. I would say, though, that before we get going, I think part of the reason why people maybe want to look to 2022 is because, honestly...
The next World Cup?
Yeah, it's also easier to do because there's so many players right now who are 16, 17, 18 who maybe aren't quite there yet, and we maybe are going to include them in our squad, but it's kind of unrealistic to see them actually starting for the U.S. national team right now, but 5 years from now...
I'm making no excuses for my team right now.
All right.
I'm all in on this team.
I guess I'm trying to just cut off the idea of you guys are saying a 16-year-old who doesn't play regularly and at Major League Soccer deserves to be in there, and the answer is yes.
Okay, Taylor. So I want to start this way. So we're going to sort of take it in turns, naming who we've selected and why. But I want to start with maybe, do you have a philosophy for your team or a shape for your team? Or do you want to reveal it as you go? I'm good with either approach.
Well, I'll say this. I really wanted to kind of have a team that reflects current trends. I think the United States has been a little bit behind. I think we were slow to get into the 4-2-3-1.
So they were going to button the top button on their shirt.
I mean, yeah, that's the classy look that I enjoy. And so I kind of wanted to go 3-4-2-1, but I don't know if we have the personnel for that. I really don't.
Ooh,
so
we do have a lot of centre backs, so just numerically, it's not hard to come up with 3 really good centre backs.
And if we're going with wing backs, though, that are like have 5 or fewer caps, that's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Then if you're going to remove Christian Pulisic, probably Wood from the equation.
I forgot we didn't mention him earlier. Yeah, he's obviously of the young generation, but he's now a senior men's national team player, so he's not involved in our sort of future lineup today.
Yeah, so then you look at like who are the those 2 kind of creative players, who's the forward up top. I don't know if it quite fits as well as maybe, say, a 4-3-3. And that's what I've gone with.
I've also gone 4-3-3. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of overlap between our starting 11s, which is good since we're co-coaching.
Can I explain my 4-3? That's right. So there won't be some break in the butt in the locker room before we even sort of name the team.
Yes.
What if we were in the locker room and we put out 2 different formations and the players were like, Coach Daryl, Coach Taylor? Which one is it?
It's pretty much what the US has been doing anyway, so it's fine. We'll just blend these 2. I'm sure it'll work out. Pass the ball but kick it long at the same time.
So I've deliberately selected a lineup which in many spots is the opposite of what we saw from the US recently and specifically against Trinidad. This is a team that isn't too soft for the Hex. Mm-hmm. This is a team that sort of can have a really simple shape that can be a 4-5-1 or a 4-3-3. We can go defensive when we have to. We can get numbers in midfield, which we didn't do against Trinidad or Costa Rica and so on and so forth. But we can also break. And it's going to be a team that can sort of like the Tab Ramos teams have been doing, they can counter-press. Mm-hmm. Like when you have the ball, this team is going to be in your face, running at you to try and get the ball back. Then we win the ball back high if we can, and then we attack. Mm-hmm. That is what I want. It's like a punch you in the mouth US men's national team, but with a plan to do so. This is a tough team. This team would walk through that river around the edge of the Trinidad pitch.
Yeah, I like that you're saying that with the awareness that most of the players you're about to talk about are under the age of 20. So the idea of them just like hitting these like 30-year-old grown men, it's a little odd.
But this is based on what I've seen them do for youth teams and in their professional careers.
Alrighty.
So, okay, that said. Would you like to go first? Who is your goalkeeper?
I think there are 2 options, and I've just kind of picked one. I've gone with Ethan Horvath. I think the other one that really comes to mind is Jesse Gonzalez. I think that's the other obvious choice since he has fought his one-time switch. He will be with the United States, so maybe it makes sense to give him some playing time. But Ethan Horvath seems to have really played his way into contention as a starter in Europe. I think that matters.
He's literally starting for Club Brugge. He is their number 1 goalkeeper in Belgium.
Yeah.
He's only 22. I would argue that this is one of the changes we should have made earlier. When you look at the goalkeeping personnel against Trinidad, Tim Howard, not his best game. There was one moment where it sort of bounced off him and nearly spun in. It would have been really, really embarrassing. He got lucky.
And I want to add really quickly, if you don't mind, that I actually saw there's a Travis Clark linked to a person who broke down a bunch of different sequences in the Trinidad and Tobago game as to all the things that went wrong. It's pretty brutal. But then there was a person who responded to that pointed out why Tim Howard looked shaky, and I couldn't really figure it out. And the argument that this person made, I apologize, I can't remember the Twitter handle, is basically that he kept not trying to save with his top hand, that he kept reaching.
Top hand?
So imagine the full stretch save that you see a goalkeeper make. Yeah. I guess you're supposed to lead with whichever. So if you're diving to the left, you would have your right hand leading high because it gets you further extension.
Okay. I see the
Tim Howard was trying to save with his left hand, so then he's trying to cover more ground, and you're not going to be able to do that as much, and it speaks to a lack of mobility, which I think then is kind of a problem.
So yeah, Tim Howard, 38. Brad Guzan, I don't know his age, but he's up there. Nick Romando, also around 37, 38, I believe.
I think Brad Guzan is the youngest of the 3. Yeah.
We have an old goalkeeping core, right? And there's going to be maybe an argument in November of, is Brad Guzan the starter, or do we just completely go next generation? We're talking next generation here. I think Ethan Horvath is my choice. I think he's ready, especially in a team that doesn't have points on the line. He is ready to be an international goalkeeper.
I think I'm ready to see both of them called in, and I'm ready for that to be the new, I'll say, Friedel Keller, sort of they're gonna push each other. They're gonna really try to drive each other to be better than they would be otherwise.
What about, say, Bill Hamid or Zach Steffen, some MLS guys?
I didn't look at Bill Hamid because I don't know how many caps he has, but I think it might have exceeded the quota that we've established of right around
that makes
5.
Sense. Yeah.
I mean, he's a possibility, but it's always, what about Bill Hamid? I feel like it's what we end up talking
Usually
about.
the answer is, he's injured. Which is not to be harsh on Bill Hamid, but that's a major problem if you can't count that a goalkeeper is going to be fit the whole time. Yeah. And there's also, he's about to make a move to Europe. We could be talking about him in a different sense in a just a few months as someone who's succeeding in Europe.
But that will make a difference because
I think he's going to make a move to Europe.
More often than not, he's been playing for a struggling DC United squad, and it hasn't helped him.
He's been a busy gentleman.
Yeah, and it hasn't helped. And so I think, if you get him in a different setting, maybe abroad where he, again, kind of earns that starting job, that changes the discourse a little bit. But for right now, I think it's Horvath or Gonzalez, and I'm inclined to go Horvath as well. I
can tell you the one thing I learned about Horvath, because I did research on Horvath before for a Top Drawer Soccer show. He seems to have all the basics correct, which leads to not a lot of like flash saves that make YouTube highlights, but a lot of just like his positioning was sound, his footwork was sound. He made the right decision to come and claim that cross or to stay on his line, and it's a lot of correct decisions. And he has this like air of composure about him and confidence that basically comes from technique, if that makes sense. Comes from technique and decisions, doesn't lead to a lot of scrambling and flashy things. But I kind of like the idea of some calm emanating from the goalkeeper position in November.
I absolutely agree with you, but I also do like the idea of calm but pressure. And so I think maybe last season at this time we might have said, Jesse Gonzalez, because FC Dallas are playing really well. They're struggling a little bit right now, so maybe that makes him drop a little bit of my estimation. But this is what I want, is two keepers who are like pushing each other so that it's not sort of like it's a big deal. If Tim Howard sits when he's at full fitness, it's kind of a big deal. It's a talking point. I would much prefer it be like, well, could be this guy, could be that guy. They're going to keep pushing each other, and then we'll see who truly earns it, establishes themselves.
It just occurred to me that whoever the next coach is, interim or full-time, if they decide that Brad Guzan is the starter, you can kind of take that as a symbol of there's not some big youth revolution. It's going to be kind of timid.
Yes and no. I mean, because I think, again, so say you do have somebody new come in. So for sake of argument, say it's Tata Martino comes in, who, by the way, yes, I was...
Coaches Brad Guzan.
Yes, but also definitely managed Argentina.
The 2014 World Cup final?
Yes, exactly, yeah. I think I just spaced on that one because I was more focused on him.
I saved you. If listeners have noticed, I saved you.
Well, you said also Argentina. I said Paraguay. Because my point was simply that he took a team that was maybe consistently underperforming or performing above, and got them to perform above their level. Basically.
Yeah, okay.
So with that said, say you bring him in, I do think that if you bring in a new coach, they're more inclined to go with some of the established names than maybe a few that they're interested in.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see this sort of here's this 19-year-old goalkeeper who I think is very exciting, who's playing in this whatever league. I'm going to bring him in, and this 18-year-old winger, and this it's less about experimentation to start, I would say.
But we're all about experimentation.
There we go. That's why we're coaching this team. Yeah.
In goal, coaches Daryl and Taylor. All right, let's move to centre-backs. We've both gone a back four then. Centre-backs, I think there's a lot of choice. It was actually quite hard to choose.
Okay.
So I guess give me your centre-back pairing and why.
It's tough,
as you said. And we'll do honourable mentions and close misses afterwards because we don't leave anybody out.
I'm going to go Eric Palmer Brown.
I am too.
And I'm going to go Matt Miazga.
I've also got this. Yes.
As EPB. I said, I think there's going to be some overlap. Yep.
EPB and Double M. I think basically you copied me, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean,
so talk me through those choices before we talk about anyone else.
When I had as a 3-4-2-1, I had CCV in there as well. That was my other one. But you could also go Justin Glad, I think, as another.
All right. Enough honourable mentions.
Sure.
Why Eric Palmer Brown? Why is he the first name that we both said?
I think because we've watched him at different stages for a while now. I think so. We've kind of seen him progress a little bit, and then I'm sort of with an eye towards the future as we're trying to have. I mean, he's got his move to Man City. I doubt he's going to break into the first team anytime soon.
He'll be loaned to the Netherlands, is the guess.
That would be my guess. Yes,
but he'll be playing first team football somewhere because Man City at least will have a plan for him. They're not going to let him rot somewhere. Yeah.
Right. So I think he is a quality soccer player. We've seen that both for club and country. But I think also if you wanted to maybe have a friendly in November that reminds everybody hey, things are not so bleak.
Yep.
Here's a guy who's just been bought by Man City. Kind of maybe gives you a little bit more hope than you might otherwise have. And then partnering him is the guy who was bought by Chelsea, but who has been doing very well in the Netherlands, as you mentioned.
So can I be our how about this? I'll be our defensive coach.
Sure.
When we do our co-coaching partnership. So I watched a lot of footage of Eric Palmer Brown and Matt Miazga to kind of prepare for this show. And again, just as a reminder of what they do, I like what I saw. Eric Palmer Brown is calm and composed, but also strong and aggressive. He's very good at what someone's running at him one-on-one. He is very good at knowing when to step across, win the ball. He's also great in the air. He just has like exudes this sort of like he's captain material. Is what I'm saying. He looks like a leader. He's also dangerous on set pieces going forward. I've seen him score a lot of headers for the US under-20s. He can even, I think I complained about it at the time, he can even step into midfield. So you know that this guy is better on the ball than your average centre-back.
Yes.
Smarter than your average centre-back.
And he can push Tyler Adams into a number 10 spot if need be.
Well, more on that later. For Matt Miazga, I went and watched some footage of Matt Miazga for Vitesse Arnhem, and I got kind of excited because you know what we didn't see for the US in recent games was someone who was talking
lots of stuff
on the back line.
We didn't see lots of stuff.
We didn't see lots of stuff. I read an interview with Matt Miazga where he says, I'm a communicator. That is part of my game. That's what I love doing. I love talking to people. I didn't want to take that at face value, right? So that's why I went to look for these highlights. And he's doing it. Even on his Vitesse debut, where he comes off the bench, you see him waving the rest of the back four forward to make sure they all step up and get in line for the offside trap. You see him talking to teammates about, come closer, do this, do that. Matt Miazga also good on the ball. Matt Miazga also great in the air. Matt Miazga also great one-on-one defending. And he's getting less skinny every day.
I would say also he's another one who I do put a lot of weight behind a player who can go to a place on loan as he did last season and play his way into getting loaned back again, but then play his way into a starting spot. It's not him being loaned back and then it's still like, he'll play here for like 10 minutes or whatever. Or like he's looking good in training. Hopefully, like he is starting to really cement himself there, which I think means either maybe Chelsea's a little bit out of like way off in the distance right now, but maybe a loan to another larger club.
It's the Andreas Christensen model, right? Yeah. Andreas Christensen, Chelsea player, went to Borussia Mönchengladbach for a couple seasons,
and now I think it was a 2-year loan, and
now is not always, but sometimes starting for Chelsea right now. Right?
Yeah.
Matt Miazga's 22, I believe, so he's got time to grow a little.
I can tell you that he will be, at the time of the 2022 World Cup, 27, so he is probably, my guess, to be 22 right now. Yeah. Yep.
And Eric Palmer-Brown, I believe, is 20 years old. But those guys are not like, it's not a long shot to see them start an international game. EPB has less actual experience, like Porto B, a few games for Sporting KC. But I think he's ready to play an international game, like in a non-sort of threatening situation.
Yep. That works for me.
So how about the guys that we didn't mention, or we did mention but didn't talk about too deeply? Cameron Carter-Vickers. Everyone's been excited about Cameron Carter-Vickers for a long, long time. I guess, why did he not make either of our starting pairs?
Still young, I think, is the biggest thing. Of the names we mentioned, he is the youngest player in there. And then on top of that, I think...
Is he 18, 19?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's also that he's gotten his loan move, so he's starting to get more minutes. But
Sheffield United.
He's another one where like it's still kind of tough because for the longest time it was Tottenham's U23s when he was a 17-year-old.
And when he played for the first team, it looked shaky. Like when I saw him in the EFL Cup, and it did not look good. He looked nervous. He made some mistakes. In pre-season, apparently for Spurs, it was not a good look for him.
Right.
Apparently, the start at Sheffield United has been pretty good, but I think he's only played maybe 3 or 4 games for them. So maybe it's just he's a little bit behind the other two, just in terms of having played sort of. Having performed at a level that we're comfortable with.
Yeah. And I think really when it comes down to it, if you're going to go with like new faces, if that means like just throwing the youngsters in there, then it probably would be him. But for me, if we are going to change things up, he is still on the younger side of the 3 names we mentioned. Justin Glad as well is older. So I feel like those guys, if they're like kind of on that same level, I would say, I'm going to give the edge to the guy who's just got a couple more years, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser. That's what I'm going to go with.
I think CCV may be the biggest of all of them because he's a large gentleman. But yeah, I can see the arguments for Miazga and EBB. What about Justin Glad? Do you ever get a look at Justin Glad playing for Real Salt Lake? Yeah. So the argument for him for my case is that he's starting regularly for Real Salt Lake and looking very good doing so, winning a lot of balls. I think there were some doubts about, like Miazga, like maybe a little skinny, and like big strikers will maybe knock him around a little bit. But a lot of people very excited about Justin Glad.
So why don't you have him starting then?
Just because I think it may be some weird MLS bias.
You went
right?
from I'm very excited about him to a lot of people are very excited about him. So I wonder if that was your way of like cooling that a little bit.
I can't say that I've watched him every game. Like we only watch a certain amount of Major League Soccer for the Total Soccer Show. And then the things I saw from Miazga and from Eric Palmer-Brown, I'm just more excited about them. I know it's tough to say, right?
Yep.
It may be a weird like anti-MLS bias that I'm feeling, that maybe if he was like linked with a move to Europe, I'd be thinking, oh, Justin Glad. Right? It's kind of like that famous meme of like, with the guy turning around. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
The meme where the guy's with his girlfriend but he's looking over his shoulder.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Another girl walking
past. Yes. The meme where the guys turned around was slightly vague, but
sorry.
I'm with you.
So like the first girlfriend is MLS defender, but then the second girl is defender who moved to Europe.
Sure.
Here's one more thing I want to say on this point is I think this was one of the weaker spots for the US men's national team through qualifying because Jeff Cameron had a couple injuries and a couple bad games. John Brooks had more than a couple injuries. Omar Gonzalez, we had a lot of criticisms of, scored the own goal that sort of kind of started this whole disaster. Matt Beasley was the only sort of steady presence through qualifying. So you can argue there's a lot of centre-backs underperformed. This is a position that's ripe for the next generation to get their chance. And luckily, there's a lot of players in that position ready to step up. So this is, weirdly, I'm most excited, I think, about this.
I'm excited to see which
Until
of
we
them
get to midfield.
is most capable of playing out of the back, because that is another problem the United States had, is having a centre-back who's comfortable with the ball at their feet. So I'm excited to see which of the names that we mentioned there have the most capability.
I would say, we got to joking about the meme thing, but I would say, as my understanding, I can't claim expertise on this, is that EPB and Miazga are the better players at playing the ball out of the back.
There we go.
Yeah.
So that works for me. So then we're going to go to our fullbacks.
Yeah.
As always, it's a slightly weaker spot.
It is. So this is the less exciting part of the future because there's not like a great long list where you can be like, oh, it's this guy, or it's this guy, or it's this guy, and this guy moved to Europe. Shall I go first here, or you go first? Who have you got, Coach Taylor?
Well, I knew who you had, and I knew there was one overlap, so I might change it. But I've got Justin Morrow as my left back, and I have gone for... I was thinking about Matt Polster, but I know you have also gone Matt Polster, so I'm going to go Matt Olasunde. Because why not?
All right. I guess you could claim he's a Manchester United under 23.
No, I'm going to go Matt Polster. I'm going to change my mind.
Okay.
Yeah. And just because it would be... Matt Olasunde, that is another one, similar to Cameron Carter-Vickers, where I think I just assumed, like, oh, he's playing for a big club's like youth team and has looked okay, and therefore he's going to be amazing. And Matt Olasunde, I think you probably can't... Like, he might be very good. There's a decent chance he will be.
He's in the scouting network. We're getting reports. I think he's injured right now is one problem.
But I think that...
So you can't call him up for November because he's injured.
It's also, you can't go with a player, in my mind, you can't go with a player who like might be good one day and has played for the academy team versus a player who's playing week in, week out for Chicago.
Yeah. All right, so Matt Polster is 24.
Yep.
So he's at the older... Actually, Justin Morrow's a lot older. Matt Polster's 24.
Yep.
I think he's been in a January camp for the United States. I don't think he's played. I took a good look at his Chicago Fire highlights. A lot of it is Matt Doyle is a big fan of Matt Polster. That's what first got my attention on Matt Polster as a right back. Defensive midfielder, converted, looks really good on the ball. I saw a lot of footage of Matt Polster kind of having guys come and press him on the sideline, and he'll do a little shimmy, get out of trouble, and play a smart ball in field. But he'll also do like a big diagonal switch that's the kind of like a classy midfielder would do, but the right back doing it. And the confidence to do that, I think, is really exciting. And I've seen him get down the line, put a lot of crosses in, do a lot of cutbacks. I think he has like 2 or 3 assists this year that look exactly like that. So for that reason, and for the fact that he's 24 and not like a 17-year-old, in some ways, he's the most likely to be able to be ready to step up and play right back for the US national team.
There we are. And then for me at left back, I've gone with Justin Morrow. And as you said, he's 30. So he is not a youngster. But I want to kind of respond to, and I think the other logical choice there would be either Danny Acosta or maybe Brandon Vincent, if you wanted to go those two. More on those in just a moment.
We'll talk about my choices later.
But I think one problem the United States has had, especially under Bruce Arena of late, is kind of going with the same old, same old. It's the people that he kind of trusts to get you through. And this is maybe totally wrong, so feel free to correct me. But I feel like one thing I think that Gareth Southgate has done as England manager is kind of call in those players that maybe wouldn't have gotten looks from other managers, but it's kind of guys who are in form a little bit. So like Nathaniel Chalobah, like getting that call up. Harry Winks getting a call up. Those moments where like a player, he's gotten like a couple games here, a couple games there. He looks good. I'll give him a chance. Why not?
Livermore is another one.
Yeah.
Southgate called.
And I kind of think that United States coaches hesitate to do that. They don't call in players, and maybe it's just because Major League Soccer isn't as sexy as the English Premier League. It's not.
Isn't there an argument that Bruce Arena called up Justin Morrow for the Gold Cup, had a look at him, and then for some reason never called him up again?
And I don't know that. But, I mean, sorry,
fact,
I don't know.
He went with the tried and true DeMarcus Beasley, who I've worked with before instead, right? That's what he did.
To clarify, what I wanted to say was, yes, I know that he called him up. It's more so I don't know why he didn't give him any more chances, but I want to go with like a player who is in form, scoring a hat trick for Toronto. I think it's like, okay, that's what I want. I want an aggressive attacking fullback, and you're going to get that in just tomorrow.
So I would argue, I don't think it's a bad choice.
I also want a captain. He's a veteran. There we go, boom.
I don't think it's a bad choice. But I'd say that Justin Morrow is better off if we are doing like a 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 type thing. He has excelled as a left wing back.
There's a chance that maybe that's where I had him in a 3-4-2-1. And then when I transitioned into a back four, I was like, sure, why not?
It just feels like it blunts him a little bit to be a straight up left back.
It's going to be very attacking left back, Daryl Grove. We're all about attack in this new era.
It's going to be on Football Manager. You're going to like put his arrow forward, right?
I mean, yeah. Dodoy.
All right, so my choice at left back in the end, there wasn't a lot of choice, is one thing. But it's Brandon Vincent, Chicago Fire fullback, 23. Another one who's, I think, you don't think of him as like super exciting going forward, but he does serve in a good cross, and he seems like pretty good one-on-one defending. And I think the argument I'm making here is that there's no like major outstanding thing from Brandon Vincent, but you don't see a lot of mistakes, and all the basics are there.
So you're saying Jurgen Klinsmann had it right?
Because he did call up Brandon Vincent. He gave him a cap in the 2016 January camp, I think.
I think he was another one, maybe like Jordan Morris, who like they played against in a friendly, like a closed doors friendly, and we're like, this guy. Yeah. It might have been with Jordan Morris. I think they went to Stanford together. Could be totally wrong on that one. But yeah, I mean, he spotted him way back when, and he is kind of justified it, I would say. Not with the national team, but has kind of cemented that role with Chicago, and an exciting Chicago who are doing big things. We hear about it often, even if we don't talk about them.
With Vincent and Polster at fullback. Maybe that going forward, that should be a thing that we get a good look at. Maybe through the playoffs especially, we'll take a good look at Chicago's fullbacks to see if that's an option. Another guy who made my shortlist,
I like this plan,
for one very simple reason, is Danilo Acosta. So Danilo Acosta is a central midfielder.
I know the reason.
Who's been converted to a left back to play for Real Salt Lake, and he was converted to a left back to play for the U20s at the World Cup. We were not impressed because even though he always got himself out of trouble, Danny Acosta, I think he likes to be called, Danny Acosta's positioning really let guys get in behind him, but then he would be sort of fast enough and strong enough and good enough in the tackle, like he times his tackles well, to make up for it, although with some fouls as well. And that kind of worried me. But there was a game where Real Salt Lake beat Seattle Sounders 2-0, and I think Acosta had gone at it with Dempsey a little bit, and there was a friendly 2-0 baby from Acosta to Dempsey right at the end.
I think keep talking as well, right?
Yeah, right. So I think the reason that I like that is, one, you can learn defensive positioning. He's only 19, right? So he's got time to maybe learn some of that stuff. But two, I just love that attitude. It's more of the sort of Eric Winalda thing we were talking about, where we want US players who are just like ready to sort of be in your face and aggressive and kind of confident / arrogant and willing to shake things up a bit. And I think just that moment from Danny Acosta makes me think he's one of those guys.
I still don't know if that was like, I still feel like there's a decent chance it was friendly. That it was like they've been talking back and forth. But then that changes that, right? Because then it's like, oh yeah, he's just chatting with a friend versus like, yeah, he's going right back to Clint Dempsey.
Right? Danny Acosta and Clint Dempsey are not buddies. They will have sort of come across each other for the first or one of the early times in that game. So it's not as if they're old friends having a friendly chat. It's at least like he's been a competitor enough that Dempsey has to recognise his right to jokingly talk smack with him, even if it's only that.
I love Daryl Grove's willingness to extrapolate a 5-second video into this like larger, like clearly he has the confidence to go at Clint Dempsey and challenge him for supremacy.
But he did, right? But he was talking to him in that way that I find encouraging. Yeah. But Brandon Vincent's my choice.
All right. And then moving to the midfield.
To the midfield!
Sure, but we just want to say the names at the exact same time because...
Are they the same?
Yep.
You got 3 midfielders?
I do.
All right. Who's your... Okay, mine are Jonathan Gonzalez. Weston McKennie,
and Tyler Adams. Yep.
All right. So yeah. But it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
It is exciting that this could be... These are guys that start for their teams. These are guys who are all teenagers. I think Gonzalez is 18, Adams is 18, McKennie is 19.
Babies.
This is the exciting future of the US central midfield. For me, it does that thing as well where these guys can go and pressure the ball and win it, and then when they get it back, they're all very good on the ball as well.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about them individually?
Yes, sure. I'll start with Jonathan Gonzalez because I have the least to say about him other than that he's starting for Monterrey, who at last I checked at least were top of Liga MX. Yeah. So that's always decent. He's a player who I think the Mexican Federation are aggressively pursuing, especially now that the United States will not be at the World Cup. Sounds like that is something they're doing with a couple different dual nationals, and so I would like for the United States, if for no other reason, obviously you're not going to cap tie him, but I think...
Not till the Gold Cup of 2019.
Yeah, but I think a friendly requires a one-time switch then, right?
Yes, it would at least like half cap time.
Although I think playing for any youth national team then, and he's played for U.S. at youth national team level, seems like he's committed to the U.S., but I wouldn't mind just giving him that senior cap, just letting him know like you are very much in the plans, especially because he's played his way into deserving to be in the plans.
I think he's a realistic call-up for November, whether it's like fantasy coach Daryl and Taylor or whether it's an actual like Tab Ramos interim coach situation. I think it's someone we need to get into the senior team quickly, even if he's not quite ready. The tiny bits I've seen from Monterrey, we should watch a whole Monterrey game, right? We should really like maybe make sure to see when they're on TV and get a good look at them. He is like a guy who could actually play defensive midfield and win some tackles and then distribute the ball kind of calmly and cleverly.
Yeah, I always enjoy when you're looking at like where to put a player in, if you look at their transfer market page and when it says like favored position, because what they'll do is they'll do like the primary one and like the bigger the circle on the field, the more he plays there. And it's like defensive midfield with a giant circle. It's like, yep, there we go. That's a number 6. That makes me happy.
Right, yeah, he could be the future number 6.
But he's feisty as well, to your point. That like the as you said, the few clips we've seen, not afraid to go into tackles, not afraid to get cards, not afraid to knock people off the ball, but also not afraid to get forward when the situation necessitates it and to play quickly.
That's the word I was looking for.
Those are all things I want to see.
Feisty was the word I was looking for. The US against Trinidad was not feisty. I want a feisty United States that is capable of winning some balls and like winning some second balls and not doing the thing where we're sort of like backing off, poke half a tackle. Oh no, he's gone by me. That's really is a thing that happened against Trinidad.
I'm not talking about that game anymore.
Okay, yeah, I will stop mentioning that. So another thing with Jonathan Gonzalez is he kind of represents if he was like the base of our midfield and kind of leading our midfield, I think it would be a big thing going forward for the US to have an American with Mexican heritage being a key part of the team. And I would still say we've never really had that, right? We've never really had a guy we've made him 100% the focal point of the team and we can all like celebrate him and get behind him. I think that's a good look for the US going forward.
I mean, not in like a recent memory, I would say, would be the caveat there. I mean, yeah, there have been those players that like maybe got a couple games in a row or like a call up here and there throughout the years.
What I'm saying.
But yeah, I'm just saying like maybe 94, 98 teams, maybe 2002. I can't speak to that with certainty.
What about, didn't you say that you saw someone suggesting that Mexico going to the World Cup, US not going to the World Cup means there could be sort of a huge flocking of Mexican players to the Mexican national team away from the US?
Yeah, and a lot of that information came from Eric Gomez, at Eric Gomez86 on Twitter, if you want to follow him, who was basically saying that he had some sources, I'm assuming, in the Mexican Federation, who were saying that, like, yeah, there's 5 to 8 players who are on the fence that maybe now are no longer on the fence. Whether or not that's true, I don't know.
Did he specifically name Gonzalez?
He said they are, like, they're taking a very long look at him and having some conversations with him. I know his manager has been, like, pushing the Mexican FA to give him a cap. Yeah. So let's hope that does not happen. Or let's hope he rejects it from an American perspective. Yeah, so to your point, I think that's where...
This is like that meme again.
Yeah, right? you got to get him in
the US
there.
is the current girlfriend.
Yeah. And so that's part of the reason why, like, again, to go back to Tata Martino, that was why I was sort of like, I could see that, because you've got a Spanish speaker who's who's a native Spanish speaker. It kind of maybe appeals, and maybe it shows like, yeah, we're looking a different way than we have in the past. We're going to bring in this young Mexican American who's playing really well. Maybe that opens up the door for more dual nationals to continue to come in.
And the one sort of, I don't want to call it a silver lining, the one selling point that the US could have is like, hey, Mexico's team is kind of settled and they're going to a World Cup. We're rebuilding. We're looking for younger players. You've got a better chance of playing for the US. Like, you can gamble on maybe getting into the Mexico World Cup squad. There's a good chance you don't make it. We're going to put you in our first team very soon and start building around you.
I also think that Juan Carlos Osorio probably knows that unless they win the World Cup, and even then, he's probably not going to last much longer than the World Cup as Mexico manager. So I don't think he's as inclined to say maybe potentially like another coach from North America did maybe in the 2014 World Cup, say like, hey, if you declare to play for us, you would definitely go to the World Cup. I don't think any of those types of offers are going to be made. So it's more about the possibility that the United States is going to be inconsistent for the next couple of years versus Mexico seem like they're going to be the more consistent bet.
It could all come down to how Osorio rates Gonzalez. Like, if Osorio's looked at him and been like, hey, this guy could start for my team, or at least this guy could make the 23, I genuinely could take him to the World Cup. He's genuinely top 23. It's going to be really hard for Gonzalez to say, no, it's fine. I'll wait for the US.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, to the rest of our midfield.
Why do you insist on like making it? You keep making it depressing at the end every time. Do you want to go?
It's been a roller coaster of emotions this week.
Maybe then we should take a break from our starting 11 and maybe just do like an ad instead. And we'll come back to our team. Yeah,
we'll come back to the midfield.
I'll give you a moment to not bum everybody out by being like, hey, remember that time we lost again? Anyway.
All right, maybe we can cheer listeners up with a trip to see some music.
Sure.
Because today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek have made buying tickets to sports and concerts easier. It used to be complicated, but now there is a simpler and better way to buy. It's with the SeatGeek app. It's the easiest way to get tickets to live events. This was nearly a very happy story, but it isn't now. We had a listener, Billy Harding, emailed in. He used our SeatGeek ad, our SeatGeek app. He got the $20 rebate using the code we'll give you in just a moment to go to the USA-Panama game. He got tickets to Orlando to see USA 4, Panama 0 using the SeatGeek app. Billy was very happy. And if we could just freeze that moment in time for Billy and nothing else happens after that, then that would be great.
Yeah. So since the U.S. men's national team is done in the short-term future, if you did want to watch a U.S. national team play, and maybe one that was more likely to win, you could watch the women play. If you live on the West Coast, they're playing at Avaya Stadium against Canada.
Korea?
I think they're Canada. I believe it's away to Canada and then home to Canada is, I believe, the series they've got going on there.
Korea. I'm sorry.
Well, this is what they've got on SeatGeek, at least. And if you do not live on the West Coast, say if you live in the Richmond area and you wanted to see some music, John Prine, whom I love, folk singer extraordinaire.
I know that name. I don't know his music.
I'm not going to sing his music for you right now.
Can you describe it? Can you describe it to me?
It's folk. It's Americana.
Like folky, like storytelling folky?
Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Yeah, but a little bit goofy in there as well. He's got some funny ones. Dear Abby is always a good one if you want to start with John Prine. Paradise is the one that most people, I think, would know. But again, I'm not going to sing them for you. He's coming to Richmond, and there are seats available. And the key thing, I would say the SeatGeek seating guide is actually more helpful than the actual venue's seating guide to see where the seats would be. And as we know, there's the color scheme that rates from awful deal to amazing deal. And there are some good deals.
There's some good deals for John Prine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ooh, okay. Not amazing, but good.
All right. So you can also get a $20 rebate, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. You download the SeatGeek app, you click the settings tab, you enter promo code TSS. That's promo code TSS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
There we are.
Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode. That genuinely has cheered me up. So let's get back to our midfield.
But real quick, Daryl.
Yeah.
Where will the link be if people want to follow and look at what SeatGeek has to offer?
I'm going to put it in the show notes, but to download the app, you have to actually go to the either the Google Play Store or the App Store yourself to download it.
Daryl, will the link be in the show notes?
The link will be in the show notes. Or a description will be in the show notes.
Unacceptable. I need a link. I need a link to the description that points you to SeatGeek.
Well, Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams can link play. Will that do you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so I've got, and I assume we both have, Jonathan Gonzalez at the base of midfield, and then Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams ahead of him. And for me, like we may have slightly different conceptions of this, but for me, they're my terriers. They're going to go after people, win the ball back, and then do incredible things when they get it.
So you basically, so you've got them more like two number 8s?
Yes.
Almost then?
This is kind of the Tab Ramos formula. This is also what the U17s have been doing. It's what the U20s have done. I'm thinking of this as this could be the American style of play. We don't have enough number 10s to be sort of like super creative. We don't have a one Roman Riquelme, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go with a midfield with 3 people in it instead of just one when we had Michael Bradley. And they're all going to be capable of running you down, taking the ball off you, and then starting a move.
Yeah. So
feisty.
I'm fine with that. I would say, though, that I feel like when we've seen Weston McKennie for Schalke, it's been usually in like a midfield pairing. So it's either been a 4-2-3-1 and he's one of the holding ones, or in a 4-4-2 and he's one of the 2 central.
Yeah.
So I'd rather kind of keep him a bit more central, maybe partner him a bit more with Gonzalez. Still keep him as a number 8, but I think I say that because we were both very impressed by all of the work that Tyler Adams did in the U.S. Open Cup final, and I wouldn't mind giving him a little bit more freedom to roam around the way he did in that game, and have less maybe positional responsibility. Yes, stay central, help win the ball back, help facilitate the attack, but I would like Weston McKennie to do more of the covering and let Tyler Adams do a little bit more of the roaming.
And here's the Tyler Adams, I think, to me, I know I've talked about him a lot recently. I've mentioned him a lot recently, and it might be getting a bit too much. Like, people might be sick of me talking about him. But he really does represent the feistiness and the sort of just determination to run someone down and get the ball back that everyone, I think, correctly feels was kind of lacking in the US, either approach or execution towards the end of the Hex. I won't mention the specific game.
Yeah.
So like that, he's kind of the solution in that sense, in that we build the team around his attributes and we sort of go after people and get the ball back, right? And so, I think Adams is more of a run you down kind of guy. Weston McKennie is a very clever sort of knowing when to step and win the ball in midfield kind of guy. That's what I've seen from Schalke from him.
Yeah, I think, for a moment I took issue with that because I thought you were saying like, oh, he's more cerebral and like we've seen him be plenty physical and jump into challenges, but it's more about like he's not going to be the one to like crush you. It's more about he'll be the one to like step in front of you and win the ball. And I absolutely
especially
agree with
for a 19-year-old, right?
Yeah, but even and the reason why I really want to see him. I mean, we both wanted to see him called into this past camp.
Yeah,
because
he should have. In hindsight, he absolutely should have.
Because what we've seen him do is
Weston McKennie
win the ball back. Yeah, win the ball back, but then play it forward, play it quickly. It's not a lot of like winning the ball back, but then putting his foot on it and dropping it to a center back. It feels like he knows his job is to win the ball, get it wide or get it forward, facilitate the attack, and move forward himself.
There's a confidence, right? Once he wins the ball back, it's not a panicky kick it forward or like look around, I don't know what to do. It's like he's already decided, I'm going to like fake this way, but then cut a pass back that way and make things happen. And maybe we're sort of idealizing here, just based on the 3 games that we've seen. But I really think that's something that could be added to the US midfield.
I think it's more about like if we're going to change, for me, it's more about if we're going to change things and like try to bring in some new blood, I'd rather like push them too far in the like be aggressive, get that ball forward, don't hesitate. And like if we get caught, we get caught. Who cares? It's a friendly. Like I'd rather experiment with that sort of approach rather than like slow it down. Let's get everybody into their positions. Then we'll move the ball around. And it's felt a little too slow lately.
Isn't that what we don't want? We don't want a slow US national team. So that's why I'm really thinking of this as a US team that plays fast, plays hard. But then the bonus is that it's not just bruisers, because when Tyler Adams gets the ball, for example, we've seen him do incredible things. There was a recent through ball that he played. I can't remember who New York Red Bulls were playing, but it's an incredible ball that like if you do that packing stat of how many players you beat with a pass, I think it was about 5. Like he really split like a midfield and a defence with one pass. In the Open Cup final, we saw him doing some great stuff. He set up a great chance that Bradley Wright Phillips should have scored, where he split that defence with a curling ball. That's why I'm super pumped about Tyler Adams, is because he represents everything I want the next iteration of the US men's national team to be.
That works for me, sir. So we've got a midfield set?
We do, but one thing I want to say is there are also, the other reason I'm excited about the future is there are a lot of midfielders coming through.
Yeah.
Right? There's Kellen Acosta is only 21. He can play the style we're talking about.
It's kind of telling that we didn't include him, although I think he probably exceeds the captain.
Definitely, yeah. Well. He's part of the senior roster now, right? So Kellen Acosta is part of this. Christian Roldan could be part of this. Sebastian Lletget could be part of this when he's back from injury. He's another sort of all-action midfielder. That's a good word for sort of how I want my midfield to be. And then Chris Durkin coming through behind is almost exactly what we want to do. It could be Chris Durkin versus Jonathan Gonzalez in the future.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
But rather than just Michael Bradley and then we don't know who to put alongside him, so in the end we go with no one. Right?
I mean, and we talked about that last night, that like you want the flexibility that like if you wanted to do Jonathan Gonzalez does this, so if we're going to play him here, then like that we're going to build this formation around him, but Chris Durkin is capable of doing this that Jonathan Gonzalez isn't, so then if we play Chris Durkin, we're going to change. Like, we want that kind of fluidity and that ability to change things up and not have it be like, well, no one else can do the Bradley role, so Bradley's playing 90 minutes no matter what.
I want fluidity within a pre-established 4-3-3 shape, right? And it's more about just like little tweaks within what's going on rather than a whole new thing each time. That's what I really want from the US going forward. And I think that's what we deserve.
That's what we deserve.
You want to move to the forwards?
Sure.
Okay, you want to go wingers or forward first? Because in this 4-3-3, it's like right wing, left wing, centre forward. At least for me. Unless you got 3 centre forwards.
I do not, especially because I don't think there are that many. We'll go right wing because I think there are far more options on the right wing than on the left wing. So,
do you?
Yeah.
I only wrote down one name, so who have you got?
I think there are legitimately 5 names on the right. Yeah. Because, I mean, you could go Kellen Rowe. I think that's, I think he earned more playing time than he got in the Gold Cup.
I forgot about Kellen Rowe. He was really good.
Kellen Rowe, Brooks Lennon, Lyndon Gooch, Josh Perez, all capable of playing that right wing. And then, if you wanted to go further, McKenzie, still don't know which one it is, Gaines is a dedicated, if you go to the transfer market thing, it's a big old circle at right wing.
Someone spent a lot of time on transfer market lately.
I go there to see like secondary positions, because like for a minute I was like, Tyler Adams left back, and he has played there, so maybe. But it's also I go there to check foot, because I want to see if they're left-footed or right-footed. Because a lot of these guys, I don't know that for sure.
And transfer market's really reliable. Like they always have that correct, like which foot a player is.
If the United States were to go to a back 3 with some of the names we mentioned, John Brooks is probably my left center back because of all of those center backs we talked about, the only one with a left foot.
Sorry, just to go off topic a little bit, I talked about Tyler Adams at length. I have in the past mentioned that he could be a right-back option for the United States. I honestly think if we have a crowded midfield and we just suddenly don't have a right-back, I really think he's an option that he could play there. I don't want him to be a permanent right back. I had this conversation with Will Parchman. I don't want him to be a permanent right back, but he could play for right back. He could play for the United States at right back right now and do plenty good work.
There we are. All right. So with that said,
in terms
of my right winger,
wing,
I'm going to say Kellen Rowe. I'm going to put him in there because again, he's one who I thought we saw flashes of in the Gold Cup. I wouldn't have minded to see him call back in, get some more minutes. I understand why he wasn't.
It was weird that he was sent home, right?
Yes, he was one
Dom
of those.
Dwyer had that whole transfer thing going on.
We didn't know it at the time, yeah.
Kellen Rowe, we don't know at all, though.
No, Kellen Rowe, as I recall, was sort of like, he did great. We were really excited with what we saw. But we sent him home anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really get that one. So another one who I wouldn't mind being given some more minutes, especially if we're going to experiment. And again, you go back to like, maybe there's an argument between him and Brooks Lennon, but then you look at Lyndon Gooch, who's like started, I think, 2 games for Sunderland this season, played in 9 of 11, but that's maybe not enough for me, like not necessarily starting in the championship. I don't know if that puts you above a player who is starting consistently. What
do you like about, say someone's never seen Kellen Rowe before, what do you like about him that means you want him playing for the US national team?
Like, full disclosure, it is 100%, no, it's like 95% based on what I saw from him in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, that's where I saw the most of him.
And I thought it was kind of what we talked about. It was the intensity on the ball that, like, he didn't back down from challenges, but I think he also did a really good job to find space when the United States, I think, struggled at times and did that kind of slow build up.
Didn't we love his first time passes and first time crosses? That's what you were about to say. Sorry.
Yeah. And part of that is finding that space, and when he gets that ball, then he's able to ping that ball into the box quickly. So it's like facilitating the attack in a quick manner as opposed to waiting for an overlap or cutting inside.
And if his first time crosses were not finding their targets, then we'd be upset. It'd be like wasting possession. But he was doing first time passes, first time crosses that were making things happen. Yeah. Ooh, all right, Kellen Rowe. I think you've persuaded me, but the name I wrote down on my piece of paper is Brooks Lennon.
Yeah.
So Brooks Lennon is with Real Salt Lake right now. He's weirdly on loan from Liverpool, but he's also, I think he came through the Real Salt Lake Development Academy, so he's kind of a Real Salt Lake player in a weird way, even though he's only on loan there right now. Brooks Lennon is another one, can absolutely hit a cross. Like a big, high, bending, almost David Beckham-ish cross from the right wing, and I really enjoy him from that. The guy can dribble, he can really run at people and scare them. He's also got that Paul Areola thing of he's going to run his ass off up and down and really like contribute on the defensive end. So I'm thinking of this in a Mourinho-y kind of way. Like, this is a 4-3-3 with Brooks Lennon on the right wing. If we're under pressure and it has to drop back and become a 4-5-1, I trust Brooks Lennon to do the work.
I trust Brooks Lennon as, like, just from the little we saw from him in the U20 World Cup, I feel like maybe future captain. Just like that he's got that feistiness, but I felt like there were a lot of times when you
and wingers as captains.
It's
a whole other thing.
That's positionally racist.
So positionalist?
yeah, exactly. I guess because you want your captain in there the whole game. There's no guarantee that wingers will be in there the whole game.
I want my captain in the middle.
All right.
Yeah. This is a whole other conversation we could maybe get into another time.
Does a goalkeeper count as being in the middle? Or you don't like goalkeeper captains, do you?
No.
Weirdo. I just remember him being that sort of like. He was always the kind of like loud one, I feel like, and he was always the one who was like super pumped and super celebratory, and I enjoyed that, and maybe I also enjoyed it a little bit because he looks like Ronaldo. So for those and other reasons,
maybe we could trick people and scare them by fielding Brooks Lennon.
Sure, that works for me.
And just we'll like dye his hair, put Ronaldo on his back, and have some left backs be very, very scared.
I think he needs some bronzer, but yeah. So I've gone right wing. Who have you got left wing?
So my left wing, I had trouble choosing. You've already mentioned Lyndon Gooch.
Yeah.
I don't think it's his best position. I think for Sunderland recently he's played attacking midfield.
Yeah.
I've seen him play sort of deeper midfield for Sunderland when he had a brief spell playing in the Premier League. I've seen highlights of him on the right wing when he's playing for their under-21s. But I've also seen him play left wing. He's one of those sort of utility guys who can go anywhere. So that's why I've chosen Lyndon Gooch as my left winger. It's kind of a cheat.
Okay.
But what I like about him is he's got that sort of small, muscly frame and then dribbling at people in an aggressive kind of way.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So Lyndon Gooch on the left.
So for mine, I wanted to go with Kenny Saif because I'm kind of annoyed with the narrative of the day that I've seen has been like Aaron Johansson chose USA over Iceland because he wanted to play in a World Cup, in his face. But it's also like, well, he wasn't really going to go no matter what because he's been injured all the time.
Yeah.
Also has already played in a World Cup. But I want Kenny Saif.
Not particularly successfully.
No, but I feel bad for Kenny Saif because he came in, finally got called in, and then immediately got injured. Is still injured. I don't think he's played at all this season. I think he's still recovering from injury.
The Gold Cup broke him?
Yeah, a little bit. But I don't want him to be one who like made that switch, got called in, got injured, and then we never see him again, or we'll see him like 5 years from now. I would like to see him called back in. That said, with the injury, I'm going Andrew Carlton, which is kind of ridiculous, but honestly, I'm okay with it. Whatever.
So Andrew Carlton was the first name I wrote down at left wing, and then I was sort of thinking...
I just noticed your page. There's a lot of writing and scratching out.
So a lot of the notes underneath players' names are sort of my notes about the players, playing style. And then these aren't all other players. Some of them are, though. But you'll see the biggest one on the left wing is Andrew Carlton. because he was my first choice.
Oh, I'm seeing it upside down. I was like, you were absolutely pointing to the right-hand side of your page. But
I forgot we do teams the different way around, don't we? Yeah.
That's really weird. I've never noticed that before.
I go goalkeeper top of the page first.
What is wrong with you?
Nothing. It's perfectly normal.
That is insane. That is insane.
We'll have this conversation when we have the captain conversation.
This is like what my wife gets frustrated because she sees like the year, like a calendar year, as a circle. And I don't or I forget how it is, but like she views time as like a circle, not a flat circle. No, I beat you to it. And this feels like another one where it's just like that is an abomination right now. that you go goalkeeper top, striker bottom. It's obviously goalkeeper bottom, striker top. Get
It's not like I'm going to send my team out with the goalkeeper up front.
You might. I don't know.
You think everyone could misread the
Yeah. I think that some of these players are young enough that maybe you flip that around and they're like, I guess I'm a goalkeeper now.
Actually, because we joked earlier about co-coaching this team, and we'd be putting our things up on the board, but this would be a thing we would have to actually solve before we put the team sheet out in front of
No, I would just let you do it, and then I'd put a big X through it and write wrong, and then I would rewrite it.
Yeah, that's a good way to start a game.
I think so. It's totally clear.
Coaches
not
are
at all
fighting.
confusing.
Coaches are fighting. Andrew Carlton.
Do some admin, all right?
Andrew Carlton is the future. Go get me a juice box. Andrew Carlton really is the future at left wing for the United States, or maybe somewhere else. We've seen him in the U17 World Cup play in the number 10 position. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
go get your shine box. Yeah.
Okay,
no more.
Let's end this and get to the players. Let's talk about what we've seen from Andrew Carlton at the U17 World Cup. Right, he scored against India. He scored today as the US lost 3-1 to Colombia. Sorry, he didn't score. He set up the goal for George Acosta.
He did
by running down a fullback after a long clearance, winning a throw-in, then receiving the throw-in, dribbling to the end line, cutting it back.
Yep.
This kid can dribble. This kid will try stuff, I think in Will Parchman's words. He just tries stuff.
I agree with all of those things.
Kind of a sanitized version of what we're saying.
But you know what else we've seen from him at the U17 World Cup?
What's that?
17-year-old facial hair. You got to shave that thing till you can grow proper facial hair. That's one of my rules. But aside from that, yeah, I've been really impressed by that. I've been really impressed by his tenacity to the point where we talked about he did something in the opening game that was like a bit controversial after he scored his goal. It was a throat slit. He did these.
Was it really? I never went back and rewatched. Yeah. I meant to.
Yeah, people really don't like
meaning
that.
Game over, right?
I've never really minded that one so much. But
that means the game is over.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, and I don't quite mind that. I know some people take.
I'd say India didn't need that hosting their first game and all that.
I'd say I would generally agree with you, except that I wasn't there and I don't know how hostile that reception was or how loud the crowd was or whatever that might be. Yeah. Regardless, it's still a little bit of attitude and it's still, I know people don't like this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's still swagger, and we always go back, if you want to go all the way back to when
these
we saw
are the words
him.
we're using, right?
Yeah.
Swagger, feisty, in your face, punch you in the face.
And you go back to when it was 2 summers ago now, but we saw him play for Charleston Battery on loan from Atlanta before Atlanta existed or was playing rather, and he didn't stand out. It's in the same way Chris Durkin doesn't stand out as being. Well, I mean to say
he wasn't obviously younger.
I mean he was small for sure, but it's the same thing with Chris Durkin playing for the Kickers. That you see him and you would think like, oh, he's a 22-year-old. Oh, is he like a college senior? Like he plays and looks older than he is. Andrew Carlton, very much the case that he kind of came in for the final 15 minutes and torched the Kickers defense like 4 times in a row.
Kickers were winning 1-0.
Yep.
Andrew Carlton comes in, Kickers lose 2-1.
Yeah, and I would say that, like, I know that we're talking about USL here, but some of the opponents that the United States has struggled against this season playing players that are in USL or at a lower tier than USL. So I'm just saying, did I say the Kickers? I meant to say the United States. I just want to make that clear. Some of the United States national team has played some teams with like less talent, but don't play above them the way they probably should.
Okay, but Andrew Carlton could not start for the senior men's national team right now, right?
I mean, if we are going with you have to call in people with 5 caps or fewer to really change it up, I don't know. Maybe that sets a precedent.
So he's played, 4 minutes for Atlanta? Something like that?
That's enough.
I would like to see more of Andrew Carlton in Major League Soccer competing against grown men, for at least 3, 4, 5 games to get a good feel for what he does when someone tries to kick him out of a game.
Yeah, no,
for example.
I agree with you completely. And really, my first answer was Kenny Saif, but at the last minute, I was like, I should make sure he's playing, and he is not playing.
So it's worth I think it's worth getting people excited about Andrew Carlton, but it's also worth pumping the brakes and not being dumb enough to suggest he should start for the US national senior team in November.
My eyebrows are raised. That's all I have to say.
One other option, Jonathan Lewis, who's playing left wing for New York City FC. Right. He played, I don't think he went to the U20 World Cup, but he played for the U20s in the CONCACAF tournament and was really, really good down that left wing. He looked like really hard to catch, basically. He was burning down that left wing. And again, haven't seen too much of him, but good reports from what he's doing for NYCFC. So that's another guy worth keeping an eye on.
All right. And that brings us to
centre forward.
Yep.
So there's good news and bad news here. Mm-hmm. The good news is that there's one player that we're all very excited about.
Yep.
The bad news is that there's one player that we're all very excited about.
Well, and I would also add that everything you just said about Andrew Carlton pertains to this player as well.
Yes, so it's Josh Sargent.
I'm assuming that's who it is.
Yeah, it's Josh Sargent. It does pertain to him, except he's sort of physically bigger already and looks like more just like size-wise ready to handle things, right?
So let's talk about what we've seen from him at club level, shall we? All right, then. Because that is kind of the big obstacle there is that he has only played for like U17, U20 national teams at this point. Mm-hmm. He's played Scott Gallagher Academy, I think it is. Yes. Scott Gallagher FC has signed for Werder Bremen but has not moved there yet. Mm-hmm. So we haven't
He's got to wait till he's 18 next year.
But we haven't seen him play anywhere other than U.S. youth national teams. Mm-hmm. So I do wonder if you're playing against senior players, bigger players, older players, even if they're 21, 22, 23, how big of a difference that is.
The one thing I'd say in Josh Sargent's favour is, and just to give you an idea, if you haven't seen
I like that
before,
I said he's played for the U23s and then said we haven't seen him play against 21-year-olds or 22-year-olds yet. I mean, at club level, we haven't seen him like week in, week out.
So yeah, he hasn't played week in, week out. But whenever I see him, he looks like a hold-up forward. Like he can play with his back to goal, take some hits, win the ball, lay it off. But he can also come up with a little trick, get in behind. He can get on the end. He's a good finisher if he gets through one-on-one. He kind of has a lot of everything you want from a complete centre forward, right? Yep. At the same time, he is only 17.
This is
right?
the issue.
So that's why we have to slow our roll a little bit. And he's never played a senior professional game. But at the same time, this 17-year-old was called up to the U20 World Cup and finished second top scorer in the whole tournament. Yep. 4 goals and 1 assist won him the silver boot. Is it the boot for scoring? Yeah. So yeah, he played up 3 years and was the second top scorer at the U20 World Cup.
Yes.
Josh Sargent.
So first of all, that is a justification for why I think he should be there. I mean, Travis Clark on the Top Drawer Soccer Show said like he wouldn't mind if the United States had qualified if Josh Sargent got a call up to the senior team for the World Cup.
I wasn't fully on board with
I know you weren't. Yeah. But I'm just saying like if you're then going to really focus on changing things, bringing in the new blood, that makes sense. I think the other reason why it makes sense is because, I mean, the other names you could go with, like Jordan Morris is one, but again, 24 caps, so we're removing him. Yeah, I think he is definitely one for the future. But in terms of the guys with like limited caps, it's Dom Dwyer, who's 27. It's CJ Sapong, who's 28. It's Alan Gordon, who's 35. Are they like recent call-ups?
Yeah, well, but like youngish guys, the reason I'm not too worried that Josh Sargent is the only one coming through is that Bobby Wood is not. He's like mid-20s, so Bobby Wood has a lot of years as a US forward. Josie Altidore is not that old. Josie Altidore is 27, 28 maybe?
No, he'll be 33 in the 2022 World Cup.
But again, we're not talking about the 2022 World Cup right now. There's a Gold Cup, there's a Copa America, there's a Copa America Centenario, there's another Gold Cup and/or Confederations Cup, and then there's the 2022 World Cup.
This is true. My point is simply...
Slow down, Rockwell.
My point is simply that going back to the names that I just mentioned, though, that it's a lot of people who, if you're going to bring in the new blood, it doesn't really like. I know I mentioned Justin Morrow earlier, but with those names, there's nobody in there that I'm like, yes, he's going to be the one that can really help transition this program. Yeah. So then it makes sense to me to go younger and look at some other faces.
The only other guys I can think of are guys who are doing quite well in MLS, like Christian Ramirez at Minnesota, or Patrick Mullins has suddenly started banging in millions of goals.
I feel like there's a very good
DC
chance
United.
that we've gotten at least a tweet or an email from somebody saying Christian Ramirez before you got to it.
Probably. But he's another guy who can be like a target forward. But he's also, I think he's 26, so he's not like some youngster that we're going to pull.
Young enough.
Right?
Young enough.
But it is a little worrying that there's not sort of Jeremy Abobase, maybe. We saw him. He was the U20 sort of starting forward before Josh Sargent was around. I'm not sure that I've seen enough from Portland that makes me think this kid could play for the US national team right now. It does make me think maybe in the future, but it doesn't make me think right now, or at least it doesn't have me as excited as I am for Josh Sargent. But that might be just being excited about potential as opposed to what's currently the best option.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm that guy again, right, with the girlfriend and turning around.
Did you just look at this meme or something? What's happening?
I did. Yeah.
Do you have a poster of it in your house? I'm confused. So I mean, I don't think there's too many other names. I think Christian Ramirez is probably the other alternate there. But it's more likely going to be Bobby Wood, maybe Jordan Morris in there for the short-term future. Yeah,
so there are some youngish players already in the US national team program that I would still think of as being part of this new generation if this is the way we go.
Yeah.
Which of the players we've just mentioned then in our 2-4-3-3s do you see actually
Weston
genuinely being called up for November or January or March or whenever our next friendlies are?
Yeah, it's Weston
Only
McKennie.
Weston McKennie?
I mean, he is the number one. I would say Weston McKennie. I would say Jonathan Gonzalez.
We should try, right?
We should.
Crazy not to try.
I think that, again, that's very dependent on who the manager is at that period.
One thing that scares me is we could be in such a weird turnover period of chaos with US soccer where we don't know who the president's going to be, we don't know who the head coach is, that we sort of missed the window where someone should have been on this and contacting Jonathan Gonzalez and making sure and telling him, you're being called up in November.
Yeah.
That's a danger of the current state of US soccer. The uncertainty is we don't have someone making those decisions.
Yeah, because I enjoyed, somebody was like, I've seen a couple of people write articles about how, I guess, Panama's Blas Perez's goal didn't technically cross the line or didn't cross the line at all. Mm-mm. So there have been these articles written about, like, can the United States...
It was technically Gabby Torres' goal, I think, that they gave to. But sorry.
Yeah, but it's like basically, like, can the U.S. file a petition? Is there a way? And, like, first of all... No, I don't want to do that. But second of all, no, they can't. But third, I think the one person I saw writing an article contacted Michael Cameraman from U.S. Soccer, and he was basically like, "Yeah, I don't know if that's possible." Like, and again, that makes me feel like it is sort of a little bit like no one's quite sure what exactly is happening at U.S. Soccer, so no one really knows what the overall approach is. But that goes to then. Maybe you do want Tab Ramos as your interim manager because he probably has more than a little familiarity with Jonathan Gonzalez.
I was kind of getting into this idea at the end of yesterday's show, right? Thinking that, Tab Ramos knows most of the guys we just talked about, so therefore he'd be a good transition guy to get them into the senior team.
And for people who don't know, why does he have relationships with these players?
Because he's the youth technical director and he's the U20 head coach.
Jonathan Gonzalez has 2 caps for the U20 national team. So there's probably a little bit of a relationship already born there. So maybe you do want Tab Ramos to kind of look at some of these younger guys and say, hey, I know you're thinking about this other country, this other team. Maybe you're not thinking about playing right now, but we want you in. We want you involved.
I would argue as well that the goalkeeper we mentioned, Horvath, at least one or two of the centre-backs we mentioned, Eric Palmer-Brown, Matt Miazga, Justin Glad, Cameron Carter-Vickers, at least a couple of those could and should be in the November squad because no one's going to be excited to see like an Omar Gonzalez selection in November, right? Maybe one of the fullbacks I mentioned. There's a lot of these guys actually could make the team.
Omar Gonzalez is not going to call to this team.
You don't know that. You don't know that. He's not retirement age, even though he's kind of, he's not anyone's favourite centre-back right now.
Let's just move on. Because I do want to go back to this. I am now convinced, though, that the smartest thing Tab Ramos could do if he were appointed interim coach would be to get Jonathan Gonzalez to come play for the United States. Because, no, it doesn't cap tie him, but it is a very obvious show of intent if he accepts a call-up to the senior national team.
Yeah, it commits him, right?
And I think that if you're Tab Ramos and maybe you have an eye on getting that that position permanently, getting Jonathan Gonzalez to commit at a time when not a lot of people maybe are so interested in playing for the U.S., kind of a big deal. And I do wonder if that really strengthens his bona fides.
So it stops the downward spiral, like reverses it maybe back into an upward spiral, heading to World Cup 2022.
But say it's Tab Ramos, like complete hypothetical, but say it's Tab Ramos, he calls in Weston McKennie, he calls in Jonathan Gonzalez, maybe he calls in Eric Palmer-Brown or Matt Miazga or somebody else, and those players look good. Now you're this interim manager who's brought in young players, you've got maybe like a specific system you're trying to play, you've got them committed to it. Maybe that's enough for U.S. Soccer to say like, that'll work for us for a while. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Yep. That's true, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the show. I know you've got to get out of here
I do.
fairly soon, right? One thing I want to talk about before we do scouting. On yesterday's show, we talked about pay-to-play and development academies, and we kind of, I think it's my fault, we made it sound as if MLS development academies are not free to play in. They are, for the most part. I think DC United is the exception. I added a clarification afterwards, but there are a lot of people who downloaded that show before we fixed this. So I want to make clear that one of the things we were talking about is we thought about the idea of an open system where as many teams as possible are individual teams that either are not MLS related but are somehow able to survive, able to have the finances to fund their own development academies, so that Scott Gallagher Academy, for example, which is not affiliated with the team right now, but I assume, I'm making an assumption about Scott Gallagher Academy, that they have to take fees to survive, so that a development academy like that could be linked with a professional team that could fund them, and that would possibly end pay-to-play.
Yeah. I mean, because keep in mind, like Josh Sargent playing for Scott Gallagher, I think they're in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
But he qualifies as a Sporting KC homegrown player.
Right, because MS is,
that's the catchment area.
Yeah.
So I think that was more so the point, that you need more of those types of academies that allow players to play without having to spend a ridiculous amount of money.
Could be, without going too deep down this rabbit hole, that could be massive MLS expansion where we just say, all right, we just want teams with development academies everywhere. And so that way we've just got lots of players going into development academies. or we somehow make it so that teams can be so profitable outside of MLS that they can fund their own development academies. All right, I just wanted to clarify that point from yesterday in case there was any confusion.
And final word of clarification, St. Louis Scott Gallagher is the name of the club. Not Scott Gallagher FC or anything like that.
And just to be very clear, I did not want to give the impression that MLS development academies are pay to play, with the exception of DC United. They are not.
Okay. And with that said...
Yeah, speaking of the future,
yep.
Lots more future on this paper in front of me here with the TSS Scouting Network, where we get reports from around the world about players from around the world doing exciting young things.
We do indeed, and since we've got a young Englishman... at the top of the page, Daryl Grove, why don't you get us started?
Okay. So Jason Pham is scouting Samuel Shashua, the 18-year-old English midfielder for Tottenham Hotspur. Jason says Shashua scored in Tottenham Under-21's Checkatrade Trophy loss to a full-strength AFC Wimbledon side. He held his run and then pounced on a great ball in from Keenan Bennett. According to Football London, which must be a website,
apparently,
Shashua was, quote, very bright in the first half, looking to link up play and fully deserved his goal.
That'll work. Shreyas Ramani scouting Dan Axel Zagadou, 18-year-old French left back for Dortmund. Zagadou has been on the bench for Dortmund's last 3 matches. That said, with Lukas Piszczek picking up an injury on international duty, Rafael Guerrero and Marcel Schmelzer also injured. Zagadou looks set to deputize at left back for Dortmund for the foreseeable future.
Tallest left back in the whole world. Alec Brew is scouting Davy Selke, the 22-year-old, he actually might be, German striker for Hertha Berlin. Alex says Selke is nearing his return and is travelling with the Hertha U23 side to England as they take part in the Premier League International Cup. I do not know what that is, but that sounds exciting. The tournament consists of 12 Premier League 12 Premier League 2 sides plus 12 under-23 teams from academies across Europe.
Beautiful.
Now you know.
Yep. Guy Edwab scouting Serge Gnabry, 22-year-old German wide forward on loan at Hoffenheim from Bayern Munich.
I like that positional assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Did Guy say that?
He did indeed. Yeah, right. Since Serge Gnabry's injury continues to leave him out of both international and club football, there hasn't been much news until Juan Mata recorded a video thanking Serge for joining Common Cause, the charity initiative he started, calling on professional footballers to donate 1% of their income to the development of football in poorer areas. This puts Gnabry... What? Yeah, sure, why not? This puts Gnabry on a list of elite footballers alongside Mats Hummels, Giorgio Chiellini, Megan Rapinoe, and Alex Morgan. A list which is, says Guy, sadly far too short.
Well, maybe the more players join, the more players are kind of persuaded to join.
Yeah.
Michael Heitmann is scouting Junior Flores. We had an update last week. The 21-year-old attacking midfielder for Borussia Dortmund 2. Okay, I haven't read it. The hope is that he played in a league game for Borussia Dortmund 2 after scoring in a friendly. The look on your face said it didn't happen. Flores, unfortunately, was not on the roster for Dortmund 2's game today. Hopefully, his hamstring is still in one piece. #free Flores.
Joe Matea, I apologize either way. Scouting Martin Odegaard, 18-year-old Norwegian midfielder on loan at Heerenveen from Real Madrid. Odegaard scored a beautiful goal and had a good assist for Norway in their 3-1 win over Germany in U21 Euro qualifying, which was their first victory in qualification thus far.
So I haven't seen the goal, but Joe sent us a clip of the assist. It is this thing he starts from the right wing, and he either hits a through ball on the diagonal or a long cross. It's such a weird ball that I can't tell which one, but it just lands over the back of the defense so that the striker can just bang it in. So great ball from Martin Odegaard.
Here is the week that we have had is that I watched the video of him scoring a goal and I was about to say I think I watched it last week. I watched it yesterday. It just feels like it's been a week. It's a really good goal.
This is goal. Okay.
It's a good goal in the sense that it's a good amount of technical dribbling, beats some players, but then it's the goal where from a relatively tight angle from a decent distance, he kind of picks his spot, knows that I can bend it around the goalkeeper and into the side netting, and that's exactly what he does. So it's just that it's the awareness to know exactly how to finish the ball in relation to where the goalkeeper is. It's a good goal.
So Martin Odegaard could still be happening. He was one of the original TSS Scouting Network, this is a player that everybody's talking about, guys. And then he kind of fell off the radar a little bit in terms of not achieving much, but I think he might be back.
Unlike Fetch, I believe it is. Martin Odegaard is maybe still happening. Yes. William Reed up next, Daryl Grove.
William Reed is scouting Harry Winks, 21-year-old English midfielder for Tottenham, and I'm going to add the England national team.
Yep.
William says Winks earned his first full England cap against Lithuania and impressed in his performance. I knew that was coming. He offered a creativeness from midfield that England has been lacking and could earn more chances in the future. Tottenham have also turned down a loan approach from Nice, pointing to more opportunities to come at club level. Go Harry Winks. Win us that World Cup.
Should work. Beth Jolly, Alex Barone scouting Kylian Mbappe, 18-year-old French forward for PSG. Again, it's hilarious to me that we always have to say that about Kylian Mbappe because everyone knows who he is. Kylian started and played 83 minutes in France's 1-0 victory in Bulgaria on Saturday and came off the bench in the 62nd minute versus Belarus on Tuesday. He had no goals, no assists in either match. But more excitingly, Kylian made the 30-man shortlist for this year's Ballon d'Or.
See, I would have led with that.
Yeah, at 18 years, 9 months of age, Kylian has supplanted Michael Owen to become the youngest player ever nominated for the award.
Oh, man. Okay, so that's a good report because there's a lot of detail in it. But I would ask everyone sending us reports at totalsoccershow.com/report, put the big news first so that I can get the exciting news.
All right.
He's made the Ballon d'Or shortlist.
Yeah.
Kylian Mbappe.
But maybe you want to end with it to like really build that excitement.
Oh, yeah, bury the lead. That's what everybody always says to do. Christian Brukel is scouting Paxton Pamecao. Paxton Pamecao, the 17-year-old American midfielder for FC Dallas. I see my name in it. Okay. After getting what felt like a, quote, "I'm not upset, I'm just disappointed," unquote, email from Daryl and Taylor for my lack of Paxton Pamecao updates. I think I did send that. I'm happy to fulfill my duties for the young phenom. Thank you, Christian. He hasn't seen the field for the FC Dallas senior team since a knee injury sidelined him in May. However, he scored 2 goals for the US under-18s in the Vaclav Jezek tournament in August. With the looming departures of several key FC Dallas first-team players, Pamecao could get considerable minutes next season. Pamecao is a guy that US fans should be excited about based on the highlights that I have seen.
I guess not excited enough to put him into their future starting 11s for the November theoretical friendlies, but whatever. Jeff Markman scouting Reece Nelson, 17-year-old English midfielder for Arsenal. Nelson made a substitute appearance for the England U19s in a 1-0 loss to Czech Republic. He then played the full 90 in a 2-2 draw with Slovakia, notching an MLS assist for the Young Lions opener.
Ooh, I'd like to see that. I would like to see that. Okay, thank you to everybody who sent in scouting reports. That would be Jason, Shreyas, Alec, Guy, Michael, Joe, William, Beth, Alex, Christian, and Jeff. Much better that time. Much smoother. If you would like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, you go to totalsoccershow.com/join. You'll be supporting the show. Lots of people have joined this week, I think as a show of solidarity after the US didn't make the World Cup and people were worried that we might be sort of going under.
Yeah.
We're okay. Thanks to, I mean, it's not the only thing that's keeping us afloat, but it is a huge boost that we've gotten all these recent subscriptions.
Yes.
It keeps Taylor and I going.
It sure does.
Okay. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Think if there's any obscure movie references I want to throw in at the end, there are not. Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, one final thing. There is an 11:30 a.m. Sunil Gulati press conference Friday morning. We're going to have a listen to it. We're going to find out what Sunil Gulati says. And I think we'll do a sort of short kind of emergency, they're all emergency pods these days, but emergency podcast after the Gulati press conference when we have some news about what he said. He may step down. He may say Bruce Arena is stepping down. He may be saying this is now a dictatorship and me and Bruce are in charge forever. We'll find out on Friday morning. All right, we will talk to you tomorrow.